Good morning, everyone. We're not going just yet. We're going to reach. Let me just kind of tell you what we're up to this morning. Most of you came here just for coffee. You're disappointed right now. It's just going to be end conversation for a few more minutes. We made a call to Fairways. They're going to help us out. All the planning and the one thing we left off was just half of the program. Anyway, so this morning we have some of our candidates here. We think we have one more coming. We will start at 10 o'clock. This is a very informal meeting today. We're going to have our candidates introduced with it on camera. This is a chance to hear what they have to say. So what we're going to do is field questions from each of you. And you'll raise your hand, I'll recognize you. Terry will bring a microphone to you because we're recording this. And are we live as well?
Yes, we are.
So we'll be live as well on Zoom. So if you have a question specifically for a candidate, she'll bring the thing, you'll ask that candidate. We'll move on to the next question. If you have a general question, I'll give you those up fairly across the board. And we're trying to keep this that we get one answer unless someone has something completely opposite. Candidates raise your hand as well, and we'll do that. So we asked for, of course, just like any Lake of the Woods event, civility. No personal attacks, no yelling out. You can't be recorded if you're yelling from over there. We'll have a thing here. And this thing goes for you. No yelling out. No, we observe civility. What else did I forget on the little checklist here? This, yeah, please everyone use your phone. This format, coffee and conversation, was something that came up last year. The board of directors thought it would be a nice way to have something up close and personal. So at the end of this, we're scheduled for 2 hours. We get through all the questions. Prior to that, I encourage you to just, our candidates will come out, get a chance to shake their hand, talk to them. You may have more questions. Buddy, that's a phone on. Thank you. Thank you for muting them. What else? Yeah. No personal attacks, no alcohol. Sorry. Yeah, you can't do that. I want to tell you about other meetings as well. On July 16th, there'll be a candidate forum. Well, I should do this one before it so people know. Okay. Nice tune. Okay. So, okay, it's 10 o'clock. Looks like we're seats up here. Front row. I guess I may need to repeat what I just said, huh? No. Okay. All right. Ron, I guess we're ready.
Yep.
Okay, everyone, you're ready to go. Okay, all right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this candidate forum called Coffee and Conversations. There will be some coffee here for you in a little while. We have first of all, let me introduce our candidates for this year. Starting on the left, Lee Penicky, Tom Francis, Holly Ferguson, Tracy Nichol, and Darcy Jennings. Our candidates, they're going to introduce themselves to you in just a moment. I'm going to have each of them tell us take a minute to tell us about themselves, and we'll get going that way. I want to thank all members of the nominating committee who worked. My partner today, Terry Vickery, is also on the nominating committee. I'm Pete Brown on behalf of the nominating committee. We welcome you. Thank our board of directors for making this possible. And we're trying to get more people see it. Going to take an attendance of some sort. While we're underway, please remember civility, any Lake of the Woods rules. I'm going to call on you to ask your questions. That can be to a particular candidate or in general. If it's to a candidate, that candidate will answer your question. If it's something in general, I'll assign those fairly, divvy them up. Unless there's if somebody has a completely different opinion, they'll raise their hand. I might try to call on them, but we want to get to all of your questions as much as possible. So raise your hand, we'll call on you. Terry will bring you a microphone so you can ask your question. It will be heard. That candidate could to do this. I want to remind you of two more chances to speak with the candidates. On July 16th, we have a candidate forum. That's a Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. All of our candidates in the Marion Pond Hall. Another chance to hear and see the candidate, get a chance to talk with them. Then another one of these coffee and conversations on August 1st at 2 o'clock here. And once again, some of your friends, if they didn't make it, please tell them to come out, meet the candidates, get to know them. The Lake Currents bio should be coming out as well. And then each of the candidates have done a recorded interview that should be going up maybe by the end of this week. They're being edited now, and you'll have a chance to hear them that way. So right now, you'll get a chance to hear them live. So coffee is on its way. In the interim, who would like to ask the first question? Raise your hand. Oh, wait, hold on. Excuse me. I got a little ahead of myself. A little angry. All right, let's just start on this side and go that way. Introduce yourself.
All right, good morning. My name is Lee Henneke. I'm your current president of the board. I've been on the board going on 3 years now. Before that, on Lakes Committee as the chair and a member. So we've been down here, my wife, Dr. Amy Henneke, and I've been down here since 2019. So I've spent almost all that time in service to the community in one form or another. My background was 24 years as a U.S. Army officer, field artillery. After that, a career as a corporate executive in everything from associations, nonprofits, and commercial, both on the civilian and defense side. And I have participated in as a C-level officer in businesses from a few million to about $5 billion. So when it comes to business background and experience, I've got plenty of it, and I've enjoyed bringing it to the community for the past 3 years, and look forward to doing that for another 3 years.
Really? Huh?
Good morning. I'm Tom Francis. I am currently the chair of the Finance Committee. Been on the Finance Committee for about 8 months, the chair for about 6. I've lived in the community for 20 years full-time, but my family's had the property here for about 30 years. I'm a retired law enforcement officer, and now I'm semi-retired, and I'm a consultant that runs a dental practice. So big shift, but that's what I'm doing now. So a lot of flexibility in my day, and looking forward to serving.
Thank you, Tom. Holly.
I'm not much taller when I stand up. I'm Holly Ferguson. I am a mother of 2, a newlywed, almost a year. I've been in the community since 2015, came here with my 2 children, then as a domestic violence survivor. I'm a career nurse who switched paths and have built a very successful towing business in the area, Heels and Wheels. I enjoy living here. I see some areas of improvement that can happen. I want to donate my time that I now have because I run my own business and have a wonderful husband that helps. And my kids are now grown and don't need me as much. So I'm here to donate my time. I know how to live on a budget, and I think that's one of our main focuses here is we need to get on budget. So that's me.
Thank you. Tracy.
Good morning, I'm Tracy Nicole.
I've won the county and the state for tow calls, so I can really apologize, but I've turned the volume down and I thought it was just one vibrate, but it's probably broken, it's been broken.
Good morning. First, I want to thank all of you for coming, taking the time to come out and listen to each of us as we run for the board. My husband Brian and I have been married 31 years. We have 3 adult children, 1 granddaughter and 1 granddaughter. We bought as weekenders 17 years ago and moved here full time in 2020. And since we got here full time, got my certification in yoga training. I'm teaching 3 days a week at our center. Serving on 2 committees right now, Finance Committee and the Fairways Committee, and I'm also a liaison to the environment.
Thank you. Josh?
I think I can make Holly look tall. My name is Darcy Jennings, and we have been property owners since 2015, moved in 2017. And I like to be involved in community activities through everything I've done, I guess. And I go by the phrase, and I'm sure you've heard this before, that my dad said, if you're gonna complain about something, do something, don't complain. So that's sort of where I am. I'm the head of the president of Lioness right now, but only for 10 more days. And I recently lost my husband. He had Alzheimer's and he was in a facility for over 2.5 years. So he was gone well before, but was very content where he was. We were lucky. But that gave me a whole lot more time because he was down in Fredericksburg and I would visit all the time. So with that extra time, I thought, oh, what am I going to do? Well, I thought I could try to make a difference here. I have a master's in business. I understand finance, not as well as Tom, but I do have a strong focus too on not just the financial, but also the whole community is a community.
Thank you, and thank you, Darcy. I just saw one of our other candidates walk past that window. He should be coming around the corner now. Ted Pratt, so I'm gonna do a little tap dance for you while he gets in here to introduce himself. And we'll get back to our questions. Vonda had raised her hand first, so we'll get her asked a question. But let's get him in here, hopefully. Yeah, come on in. Sure. Right over there. This is Ted Pratt. He's going to introduce himself to you when he gets here. So that Ted has a job, so. Yeah.
No, I have to apologize. I am actually gonna have to withdraw my candidacy. Yesterday I was, basically, I'm a government contractor, so, I've already started doing job interviews this morning, and I actually start getting job interviews like at 8 o'clock. So that's why, well, I apologize. So I am going to withdraw my candidacy. I do appreciate everybody taking the time and looking in and have my back. You did great support.
Well, Ted, thank you. So don't take a seat. I mean, I'm going out here. If you want. Yeah.
It's okay. I already been to job hunted, so hopefully it'll be good.
Okay. All righty. So that's the second surprise today. The coffee isn't here. That was the first one. The second one. Okay. And then there were, right, we have 6 candidates for 4 seats on the board. Right. Vasa, you had your first question. Oh.
Do I need a mic?
Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Vasa Olson, section 2, lot 17. I'm gonna read it out. I'm gonna read it. Good morning, and thank you for your dedication to this important role. Balancing the needs and wants of our financially diverse community of nearly 10,000 residents will be your biggest challenge. As a board, your leadership is essential in guiding the general manager, approving both small and large projects, and most importantly, monitoring and balancing the budget to keep our HOA assessments reasonable. My question for you is, what is your vision for keeping our assessments from getting out of control?
Thank you, Vasa. Let's start, Darcy, you do first.
Also, that's a great question, and I think that's on all of our minds. I think it's very important to really look at the situation, and I think the board right now is and has set up some opportunities to look at where our shortfalls seem to be happening. And I personally think maybe we should be looking at different revenue streams and trying to get more information from the community of ideas of what we can do, especially with the food and beverage. We don't want to lose it, but we certainly need to find better ways to decrease that deficit.
Thank you, Darcy. Do any of the other candidates have anything vastly different to say? If not, we'll move to the next question. Raise your hand and speak.
Vasa, thank you for that question, for everybody. You know, the board has been and will continue to be very mindful of the impact assessment has on the members. But no different in our own households, the costs associated with operating our corporation, which is about a $15 million Virginia non-stock corporation, continue to go up. One of the things that you get to do if you're one of the 4 officers that the 7 directors vote in for each year is you get to go over to the Holcomb building and sign the checks on a rotating basis. And you may get a stack that's a few inches, but you get to see exactly what we have to pay for and what it costs to run this organization. And it's not cheap. And, you know, the cost of the tank of gas goes up for you. When we buy it in hundreds of gallons increments, it goes up for us, right? So the challenge is trying to figure out how can we best manage the costs associated with running our corporation with the expectations that the members have for how the level of service is provided. And food and beverage is a good example. The board looked at it last year. We brought in an outside consultant, first time that had ever been done, and got some recommendations, about 450 recommendations that we've been working through those. But a lot of that dealt with us having to put more money into food and beverage to fix things that had been broken for a long time, that were missing, that were the cause of part of the reason why we had so much turnover. If you know, if the AC is not working right in the kitchen, who wants to be in there when it's 100 and some degrees trying to cook? And so we've had to make an awful lot of investments, and the board is keenly aware of the impact. We talked about it last year during the referendum when the capitalization fee didn't pass. It was absolutely as clear and transparent as it could be made that costs would go up because there are no other offsetting streams of revenue that could move the needle. You know, unfortunately, there aren't an awful lot of levers that you can move for large scale change. We are looking at some, as Darcy mentioned, we've got several special committees going on right now, but it's been top of mind and it will be top of mind for the next board.
Thank you, Lou. Next question. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go. Holly. How much was that?
I would just add, budget is very much where we need to start. And the mass mismanagement, I'm just gonna be frank about it. There is obvious mass mismanagement. And we need to nail that down to where it is and fix it. Otherwise, it's not gonna change. But let's think about it. It starts here with voting. So the biggest change is making sure that you get out and vote for the people that you think are gonna best support the community and work together, because none of us can do it by ourselves. It is a board, so it will all be joint decisions, but it definitely has to be looked into. We have to play this smarter. There are ways to budget more friendly. We shouldn't be taking things like new AC things right now when we had a loan last year for improvements. There are definitely areas of concern. So that's just not to add to your question. I agree that with both of those answers, but it needs to be a little more aggressive to get it down so that we're saving money in our pockets as members. When I moved in, there was $1,300 a year. In the past 10 years, it's almost doubled. That's not okay. We have to figure out where the issue is. And if we have amenities that are not working, we need to fix those amenities, not add to taking out more of our funds, whatever fund account that comes from, which I'm not gonna sit here and pretend I know all the answers. I definitely don't, but I'm willing to help look into it and move things along. And I hear all the members and the complaints.
So I agree with Leif. We live in a great community. I really enjoy it here. and it does cost money to live here. That said, I think the expectation in most members that I speak with is that the money that we collect now with what the HOA is now should be spent wisely. And there's a lot of disagreement as to whether what we're doing is wise. So we said amenities, but I don't see a consistency with how we determine what a reasonable amenity subsidy is. So I think that's a step that we should take. And then where food and beverage is concerned, which is always the first thing on everyone's mind, are there better ways that we could have the same product, but for significantly less money? And know that we know that answer. We haven't really looked into that, those opportunities. And once we do, if it is possible, it's the primary motivation for me sitting here. But if that is possible, then I think there's other places that our members would like to see those funds spent, like ditch maintenance and road maintenance and things that are on the basic responsibilities of the community to provide. And that completes my statement.
Tom, Tracy, now we'll have from all six of you. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you for that question, Vasa. Been to every board meeting for the past 18 months. I've been paying attention and I've heard this board say, we do recognize a cost in labor and a cost in our payroll. So maybe we can't increase revenue or we can't find ways to increase revenue, but I certainly believe we can find places to cut those costs. The new assessment brought in $1.3 million. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And I agree with Tom. We need to take a look at our amenities. We need to take a look at our contracts. We can't afford change order after change order after change order. Contracts need to be looked at a lot more closely. So I think there are ways we can save money before we go back to our membership and ask.
Now, as we said, some of you have just arrived lately. The questions can be candidate specific or they can be general. In essence, to try to get everybody's questions asked, if we have a general one, I may just call on one candidate at the time and bounce those around. So rather than have everybody have to answer, unless there's something vastly different, raise your hand and we'll move from there. So let's take the next question, whether that's candidate specific or general. You like it? Yes, sir, Jay.
J box section 13, lot 138. Two of the largest visible expenditures of money in the last year were the fence that comes out around Route 3 and the new entrance for the visitors. A lot of money spent on those. I like whoever wants to answer this. You see the actual value, because although it's looking pretty and it may be a nice way that the visitors are coming in, I don't see any real advantage to the actual residents themselves.
So another general question, who would like the first shot at that? You had the first shot at the last one, Lee. Let's see. Anybody else got an opinion on it? Darcy?
Did that first shot at the last one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You forgot already.
I do.
I talked to the person who had spearheaded the fence committee for the fence itself. And she worked 6 long years to have that put in place, and it was an uphill and downhill struggle. It comes down really to security, not just looks. But it was quite a problem apparently for that section, I believe by the small lake. That there were security issues with a lot of things we really don't want to have here in the lake. I don't know what they were exactly, but I think that's why the fence was built. It was 6 years in the coming. The front gate, everybody has wonderful opinions on that. I'm not going to even touch it.
Lee, you had the next.
Sure. Darcy, Darcy started right off where I was gonna go. Okay, thanks for the question. You know, the fence was part of the repair and replacement reserve. It was funded, excuse me, NAIR, excuse me, it was funded. And there was a fence committee to look at the fencing all the way around the community. And that was the first section that was funded, and it was specifically to deal with the issue of people stopping on the side of Route 3, walking into our community and going to certain residences that were known to not be probably the same way we run all of our own households. So it was a security measure, and we've not been receiving any complaints about those same issues since that fence went in place. The main gate project took a lot longer than it was supposed to. I think it was 2 different main gate working groups, main gate, third gate working groups that have occurred here in our community. And the layout is basically the way the committee developed a solution for the front gate, working with the engineers. So far, it's doing what it's supposed to do. What we do have is we have some issues right now trying to develop an operational plan, AUS and the GM, on how we're going to use that second lane that was put in for the visitors. The contract we have with AUS is the largest single contract that the association pays for. I believe with this year's annual increase, it's probably somewhere around $1 million or maybe a little bit more. That has a finite set of labor hours associated with it. One of the ways we tried to drop the labor hours during my time on the board was we removed the overnight attendant and put the entry guard solution in place with all the arms, the lightsabers that you see out there. So operationally, as soon as we can get a good solution on how we're going to man that center lane, some of the issues that people are experiencing right now should go away. There's also the very real potential that may cost us some additional money in order to have more labor on that front gate. If we've got to have one person in the main and one person in the small, we're going to either pay more money or we may have less time on the road for our scope officers, and we certainly don't want that. We pay them more money to do what they're doing armed and out in our community. So I think architecturally, the way it was set up, it's working the way the committee had designed it. And they spent a lot of months working on that. So we're working through right now are just some of the operational, how do we make it as functional and as efficient as we possibly can.
Let's hear from the candidates first.
We got,
Okay, Tracy.
So the front gate project is a really good example of the kind of contracting oversight I want to see. We have all these ad hoc committees, but do we have qualified people on that? It was a mistake from the beginning, the contracting, the soil, not getting all my specifics, like it wasn't VDOT approved, it wasn't made to standards. So we're stuck with tearing something up and doing it over, tearing it up, doing it over. We're gonna have additional costs. Why? I would like to see, I need a better understanding of who puts out our RFPs, who writes them, who reviews them. Do we have engineers reviewing them? Do we have the right people reviewing them, not just volunteer from our community? And then, I want an end date. I want an amount for a change order. I want incentives if you finish early. There's all sorts of things. I want to look into the contracts. That the front gate is a perfect example of what goes wrong because we're not keeping a close eye on these contracts.
Can you beat this horse to death? All right, hold on. Who else? Any other candidates?
Yeah. So I was gonna ask this, the security, we shouldn't be building 4-foot fences around the community, and calling it for security purposes if we're paying paid security guards. Also, if anybody has any common sense, we all know that contracted things out such as security charges almost double than it would to hire our own security staff and make sure that they are legit. Yes, ma'am. As a business owner, it is ways to make things happen on a budget, and I don't think that we have been budget friendly in those areas. So a project that is now not functioning very well at the front gate, lots of complaints about it. I'm getting lots of messages from the community that is a concern as well. We also have flooding issues that are concerned. We need to put those, we need to be able to critically think and prioritize things that are not affecting more money out of the members' pocket. The solution should not be, oh, well, we might have to dig in more pocket.
Any other candidates got any more way on this? Okay, let's move to another question. What is your,
You know that the front gate, it's beautiful, right? I have not seen a single car go through that new lane in the middle. I thought when a third lane was created at the front entry, it was gonna be like easy pass on 95. Whichever direction the traffic is heavy, you open it up to that. And I thought that in the absence of the visitor lane being blocked up, that the homeowners would be able to go through the middle and the right lane. I don't understand why that lane is gonna be closed. And I also heard many comments that on one of the recent holidays, I forget which day, I'm sorry, Father's Day, traffic was backed up, but that middle lane was still closed. And I have to tell you, I came from Food Lion, I crossed the 3 on a green light. I could not proceed because the homeowner's lane was backed up. The middle lane was still closed.
let me just try my best to just say this, since we've already heard. Operationally, it's not quite there yet. That the intent was for that gate to be used on holidays, heavy traffic lane. I want to get to the candidates, but Laurie, thank you for the comment. I think that fell on the right ears here, because 4 of these people will be on the board next year, and trying to get to the bottom of all those operational issues. So let's move to more candidate questions. Any specifics? Next question, right here. Terry? Microphone here, you mind?
Hi, Dan Lawrence, section 5, lot 141. Thank you guys for openly addressing the budgeting and spending issues. My question, I'm going to change topics a little bit so give us a break from the gate and stuff. Tracy and Darcy, because I don't know you guys as well. Do you feel that the board has some responsibility towards environmental issues and conservation issues in our community? Obviously, I'm with the wildlife group, so that's important to me. And I just want to know if you guys see that as being part of this. I know we want things to look a certain way, but how do you think that can be worked into what you're doing as far as maintaining the property and expenses and all that?
Tracy and Darcy. Why don't you go first?
All right, thank you, Ken. That is a very good question and very important. The health of our lakes and of our community is, I think, utmost in everybody's mind. Yes, what runs into the lake is concerning. Our RSA overflows, our ditches. So to Tom's point, he said, convert some of our money to our road maintenance, to ditch maintenance, encourage people to do that. Keep up after your dogs. So what do we do about those geese? Don't have an answer for that. Preserve our trees. I think we are aware and do a lot of things, but we could do better.
Darcy?
I agree with Tracy pretty much on that. I also think that, with our recent storm on Saturday, which caught us all a little by surprise, and we're lucky it didn't happen yesterday, that we really need to be aware of the ditches, what's going in the lake. I live at the end of a, no, not it's cove, that's the word. I live at the end of a cove, and I'm on the side of the lake where everything comes from there to my dock. So debris is incredible, and that's just part of where I live. I wouldn't fly at the end of a cove anymore, but that's not an option. But it is necessary for every homeowner to keep track of, you know, what's going in. You could see the dirt coming in. Not from the storm on Saturday, simply because it was dark, but, there are a lot of ways I think that we can look at environmental. Keep our legs safe. We have a new person on, environmental, a young man who seems to really know the stuff. So I think we're very lucky in having somebody like that. So that's my view.
Thank you, ladies. Coffee has arrived in the back. They're setting it up now. Thank you, Laurie. Thank you, Kimberly, for, making this more than end conversations. Next question. This gentleman here raised his hand first.
Good morning, board members. My name is Jeff Cunningham. I live at section 5, I guess, emergency, I live in the city. My question to the board members at large here is the board holds a position of authority. At what level do you feel your authority is being challenged, and how do you overcome that? Because you are the voice of the membership. You're supposed to be the voice of the membership. How do you say no to the president? How do you say no to the finance chair? Nothing personal. No, no valid. Please don't red flags. But my question is to the candidates, how do you propose to affect change management? What is your level that you perceive that your authority is?
Thank you. So, all right, we'll start with the head of finance, Tom.
Well, not the head of.
And I'm sorry, finance committee.
My apologies.
I haven't had coffee.
So that's a great question. Thanks for giving the platform to answer it. I can answer from my own perspective. As the chair of the finance committee, we don't make any policy at all. The only thing we do is review at the request of the board, and we give advice on whatever those subjects are. So we're just an advisory committee, so nobody has to tell us no necessarily. And we get that all the time. The board either takes the advice or they don't. And they're empowered to do that. That's appropriate. As insofar, I think it's important to understand that the committees just advise. And it is the board that makes the final decisions. That's what we elect them to do. The reason why I sit here in front of you today is because I would like to move from an advisory role to a decision-making role. And that's how that works. And once on the board, you have 7 people who have 7 equal votes. And you have to create a consensus of those 7 people to move forward for whatever you think is right for our community. And that's what happens. We have people who don't agree with what 4 or more people decide on the board, and we have some that do. That's why it's important to elect people in sufficient numbers to the board that can move the agenda in the direction that you all feel is appropriate. Thanks.
Any other board members got something to add? Yes.
I think it's important, I agree with what Tom said, but it's also consideration that financial is very important, but so is community for activities and the groups that are created. That's part of the reason we really enjoy being part of this community, because it is a community. There are a number of retired people who have unbelievable backgrounds. I think if we could tap into some of that, if they, come forward and say, I'm a contractor, or I used to run a huge business with millions, salaries and that. But I think it's looking at the whole picture and not just financial. It's listening to the community, being transparent in what the board is doing and why. A small example might be in Lake Currents. Instead of listing the full minutes, get on the website and come up with 2 paragraphs to describe exactly what happened in that meeting. Because people will read that. They might not read all the minutes.
Thank you. One more, Lee.
So just so everybody knows, we are a Virginia non-stock corporation. There are 7 elected directors to that corporation who are the fiduciaries for the corporation. They're responsible for maintaining and improving the investments of the association and the collection of all of the real estate that each one of us owns within this community. We're charged as fiduciaries to ensure that we do things that maintain and improve the value, not only of the things that the corporation owns, but of all of our collective property. And Tom's correct. There are 7 board members on, and you have to get a consensus. Not all of our votes, as 2 former board presidents sitting in the room here know, are 7-0. We don't always agree on everything. And that's healthy, and it's part of what we're charged to do. But ultimately, the 7 people who are on the board are responsible for the operation of the corporation. Committees advise, and if they feel strongly about something, they can send a resolution to the board. And sometimes those things get acted upon and turn into changes that happen within our community. That's why we have 21, I think, permanent, and we've got at least 3 ad hoc committees right now. They exist to provide information to the board. But as a former board member, Walt Dirks used to say, you're but one of 7 on the board, so you have to work to develop a consensus.
Thank you. Ralph had the next question.
Ralph Hancock, 1089. I have a opinion on the front gate, 20%, let it go. But my second question is, the lake is responsible for the ditches, the homeowner is responsible for the culvert. After these last 2 rainstorms we've had, look at the ditches. Why is our culverts full of leaves? Because the lake has not maintained their responsibility and kept the ditches clean and free. So I would like to know, where's my $2,000 going if I can't get my ditch clean? Not mine, in respect, I clean my own because I know I cannot depend on the association. That's my opinion. Thank you.
That was an opinion of what Ralph is referring to in our regulations. Regular Woods is responsible for the ditches, homeowner for the culvert. I think that would, well, my opinion is it should be, we should be responsible for our own, but we're not. Anybody have something to add to that comment?
So thanks for your comment. I hear you. I've seen it. And I have started going to some of the ECC meetings. So I'm hoping that maybe if I get on the board, then I can join that committee as well. You can make sure that things that are supposed to be getting done are getting done.
I've been here 26 years, Parliament Street has been clean once on the left, never the right.
So I'll take a shot at that. And you're right. We did, I think this past year, we only did about 40% of the leads. Just so everybody knows, we've got 40 miles of road, 80 miles of ditches. The association is responsible for about 400 cross culverts, the ones that go across the road, not in front of your driveway. We're all responsible for our own. And over the time I've been on the board, we've taken some active steps to take some tasks that used to be in the operational budget and move them over into the repair and replacement reserve. So the money could be taken away and used for other things. The reality is our roads and grounds budgets have been used over a long period of time, basically, to underrun their operational performance. In other words, not have all the money to do everything they needed to do, or have all the people they needed to do to get the work done. So that money was then used to cover other shortfalls. I don't want to guess where one of the biggest ones was. Food and beverage. So we know, we realized, we've seen that there was a pattern of that money, those departments basically being, held at a lower manning to reduce the costs that they had, as much of their budgets they were going to consume. So that money could be moved over. I've sat in the meeting over at the maintenance building with the foreman and had them say, you know what, we knew that was going on and we were tired of it. It's not fair to us. We're doing our job and money was taken away from us basically and given to a department that was not performing. So my intent is for us to move the ditch repair and replacement and put all of that in the ditch cleaning over into the repair and replacement reserve, so that money can't ever be used somewhere else. But the reality is, We don't have enough people to be able to do it internally. This is a project that I talked about. We may actually have to turn this into a capital project and hire outside entities to come in here and do the ditch cleaning and repair. We don't have enough staff to be able to keep up with the volume ourselves.
Next question, Kurt.
Hi, Kurt Hunt, 10250. Following on to an earlier question where you're talking about, you know, as an elected board member, your power, if you will, is only what you can convince the rest of the board to go along with and move the needle. And just like to ask for, well, anybody wants to answer this, especially when it hasn't worked in a committee before. You know, what experience have you had in working in a cooperative way, with a group of people like that, and structured Robert's rules sort of setting, to try to move the needle, get stuff done, convince people to come over to your side, and actually be effective.
So someone who hasn't been on a committee?
So I think that would be directed straight to me, because I'm the only one on the board, right, standing in candidacy for, a position without serving on a committee. And, no, I don't think that affects me at all. I bought my home before I was 30. I'm a nurse, been a nurse for 15 years. I raised 2 kids on my own after leaving domestic violence. I bought a home here in Lake of the Woods. I've never been late on a payment. I built my own business. I think I'm more than certified to be able to budget, run a successful, help run a successful community, and I've got a whole lot of grit.
Next question, John, you have any?
Thank you. This question is for me specifically. My understanding is that a new GM wants to be appointed before September, and I wonder what the rush is before a new majority of the board is seated.
Well, there isn't any rush, other than the fact that you're working with interim staff right now. So we're trying to move as expeditiously as possible to bring in a talented resource, man or woman, from wherever we need to find them around the country, so that we can get somebody in here and we can start the transition and move forward. So will it happen before Labor Day? Maybe. Will it happen after Labor Day? Maybe. Don't have any control over how that's going to turn out. We will be selecting a firm, and we'll be dealing with that contract on next Wednesday. And then once we have a firm in there, then they're going to take a look. Some of the companies we've talked to already have candidates who are aware of our opportunity and have already reached out to them with their networks in the CAI, CNA world. So, yeah, this is what's known as a large scale community. And there's certain types of managers all around the country who do these types of communities with the diversity of our amenities, size, and scope of our community. And you know, there are a lot of folks that are going to be interested in this position. So what we're most concerned with is we get someone who has the right background, the right knowledge, skills, and abilities, and the right cultural fit for our community.
I'd like to comment, Pete. Last week in both of my committee meetings, the president and the vice president both said it is their utmost priority to get somebody selected by September 1. So I would respectfully request that this current board wait 2 or 3 more days and let the newly elected and seated board make that decision.
Quick reminder. Let me do my reminder. The coffee is here, and I thank the staff at Fairway for bringing it. Please get up, feel free to get up and get some. All right, Darcy, wanted to add something.
I think a number of us on the committee or the candidacy group have noted that 3 of the board members have left, and there have been others appointed, qualified people, but not elected. So we want to give a chance to have elected people make the decision. General manager is a very, very important component of our community.
All right, next question. Yes, wait, there's somebody who has, yes, right here, yeah. State your name and section number, like we normally do. I didn't after that.
My name is Francine Stevens, and I'm in section 5. Actually, I'd like to continue the same question, and I'd like to hear what Tom has to say.
Okay, Tom, this was directed to you.
Thank you for that. Just to make sure I'm answering the right question, we're talking about the one of choosing a general manager prior to the next board being seated. It isn't up to me. The board has every right to move forward and make that selection. The members who are appointed, who are sitting on the board, are appropriately appointed. Having said that, for the optics and for the members' resolution with the decision, I certainly would recommend to the sitting board now that they wait and let the new seated elected board make that decision. I think that would be wiser. It's not my call, but that's certainly my opinion.
Next question. Let's get Ted who.
This could be a slightly different question, Ted, section 10. This is more about communication. This is more for you guys to think in the future and to maybe get it out better. I've talked to a lot of people in the last few days, and I think a lot of people don't grasp certain things. For example, I heard even today, hey, 10 years ago, my homeowner association was 1,300, and why has it gone up? But if you did a 3% increase on just someone's wages over 10 years, if you made $25 an hour, you would then make $33 an hour over a 10-year span. And if you don't decrease your workforce and you also increase your workforce, this could also cause your homeowner association to go up. How are you guys, now that you're in this spot, and you guys are going to have to figure out the best way to communicate this to all of the people in the community so that they can get it? Maybe have some dashboards so that people can see this is what it was then, this is what it is now. How is that going to be something that you guys are going to accomplish?
Who wants to tackle that?
That's a great question. And this is what's really going to challenge everybody going forward, because the perception of percent of increase is a big deal. So you just get exactly why my focus is where we can do better of how we spend a significant amount of money. So before I ask members to write a bigger check every year, I really want to make sure that everybody feels like we've done all we can to squeeze every dime out of every investment or every amenity that we already have. And I think that there's surplus money there to be had that can be reinvested in things that people care about more. And once we've done that, if we still don't have enough, then I think it's time to ask members to chip in more, but not until then.
Next question. Somebody who hasn't asked one yet. Mr. Overton. Yeah, I'll get back to you probably when we have time. Everybody gets a shot.
Thanks. First, I want to thank everybody for volunteering to vote. Paul Zabriskie, left 242-6A. I've been here 34 years and talked about the fees. I think there were 280 when you brought in here. But moreover, my field is appraising, and over the past 3 years, we've had to appraise HOAs. Projects. I think we've done 40 or 50 in the last 3 years. And I get the opportunity to look around and see what kind of amenities they have and what the fees are for these associations. And we're not out of line. We could save a little bit of money, but really it's going to be like tossing quarters in the lake. Because compared to all the other associations with the amenities we have, we're going to lose on all our amenities. We're not going to make money. But the more amenities each of these associations have, the higher their HOA fees are. Now, we've got a huge association. Got a lot of families, a lot of lots. And in the 33 years I've been here, nobody's ever had. Everybody's bitching. But I can tell you that the boards
and the management has been fantastic. They made decisions that I didn't agree with. But we've got great development. And I think that we guys will continue to keep looking at these, listening to the committees and taking their advice and making good decisions. But I think in the end, that we keep talking about the HOAs, I'm going to put on Facebook, expect them to be $3,000 in the next 3 years. Because we're losing our road user fees. And if we don't understand road user fees, then we shouldn't be on board, but that's what we're losing, and that's a huge source of income for us. Now, you look at some places like Quiet Harbor, which is a lot similar to us, it's a gated community. They've got the golf courses, they've got the clubhouses. They charge initiation fees, and that's what we need to do, is start looking at some other ways that we can generate some income. Instead of charging it to the membership. But our fees are going up, no getting around it. We may end up pricing people out, but that's just the way it's gonna be. And I'll take 2 cents on the ditches. I'm the one that says clean the ditches out. And if you can't afford to clean the ditches out, maybe you shouldn't be here. You are responsible for your culvert. And if you don't clean the ditches, you leave it, then get in the culvert, they're gonna clog your culvert, and then we got no problem. Each individual, up until like 15 years ago, everyone cleaned the ditches up, but we've gotten kind of lazy and old, and we won't do it. And we gotta do that, we gotta get back to maintaining these things. But I guess that was more than a comment than a question, and get up on my high horse for a minute. But I do, in the end, and I've talked to Tom about this several times, I do appreciate everything that you all do. I've been on some committees, and it's a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of effort. And you're never gonna make everyone happy. You gotta have thick skin because it's a hard job. But I do thank each and every one of you for this.
Thank you. Thank you to all of the candidates who are willing to step forward. We've got another question here, ma'am, over here. Do you want to comment on the comment? Okay, go ahead.
Well, thank you for making me a comment. I also love this community. But I'm gonna disagree with you that, good decisions have always been made. The health of our lakes is a concern to me, and I believe we can do better. The fitness center, although a great amenity, I love it, I use it every day. We shouldn't be going back and doing the sidewalk after only 5 years. So the part goes back to managing our contracts, managing the things we're building. Clubhouse has been a total disaster, they're refreshed and they're running of it. Everybody may have the best intentions, but I don't think they're making the best decisions.
Next question.
Darcy.
Oh, another comment on the comment on the comment.
I just wanted to get comment on a comment. I just wanted to say you're a perfect example of someone who should be involved, as you said, you were on 2 committees, has a pure expertise. The expertise in this community really is not tapped into, and I think it would be really helpful. And then you have a more diverse group who is really listening to different parts of the community that I think sometimes are left out.
More comments on the comments on the comments? No, one more. Not four.
So Paul is one of the finest human beings I've ever known. But I will say this, I don't disagree. I hear this all the time. There is a movement in the community that says that this is such a great community. And if we do side by sides, we can see that we have great value living here. I don't disagree with any of that. But I don't know, but that's a different argument as to whether we spend the money we already have as wisely as we possibly can. And that's my only rebuttal, Paul. And he'll yell at me like, okay.
We have questions, right here. Back.
Hi, thank you all. I'm Paul Orlando, Section 10, Lot 202. Thank you all for stepping up. I know what it takes to be on board, so appreciate all of you expressing your interest. Staff and board bashing is a favorite social media trend around here. We all know that, I think.
I'm curious, with the question of general manager, without referring to any of the GMs from the past, what do you all consider the three most important attributes for a new general manager to bring to the community?
This is a question for all of you at large.
I know.
Who wants to start? Tom, raise his hand first.
Well, that is fantastic question. So I've often said that I can't imagine doing that job. There is probably not a more thankless job than anyone could have in the world, and I wouldn't do it. So somebody who has the ability, who has the experience and background, that's number one. They can do the job competent. That I think will find more of than other qualities. The second quality I would say is somebody who's just a tremendous people person. Somebody who listens first and speaks second. That might be a little bit harder to find. And then I think we need somebody who wants to be a part of this community. Who's actually going to live here and live under the rules and the guidance that they are providing themselves. So those would be the three things that I would look for. And I'm not sure we're going to get all three of them, but those are the three important ones to me.
Dorothy has her hand up.
I agree with Tom and everything he said, but I also think that we need to have somebody a little more visible. I think in the 7, 8 years that I was here, other than being in meetings every once in a while with the past GM, I think I saw him twice at different activities. This community runs on great activities, great committees, and it would be really nice to have somebody a little more visible.
Thank you. Tracy, you have one?
I think it's gonna be very important, the new general manager understands their role with the board. That they work for the board does not work for them.
Yeah.
And I also, think they're gonna need a lot of experience in change. They're gonna be a huge change, manager. We have a lot, we're facing a lot of change, and I would like somebody experienced with change and management.
Anyone else?
Which he said.
If you all agree, that's fine. We're going on to the next one.
Oh, no,
Lee? Oh,
please.
no.
Run
Were
across
you,
the-
did you raise your hand?
Oh, no, I
What?
can't.
Tell us anyway.
Tracy, that's
There we
all
go.
that's exactly what Tracy said. I was like, yeah.
So, Darcy's talked about tapping the resources in the community. Paul just asked a question. He has 30+ years in association management. He is part of the team helping to select the firm that's going to select the new general manager, right? And he's heard me, I've been on every one of those calls in our down select group, talk about the things that this community needs. One of them was someone who's going to be out and about and seen more in the community. Having spent, the past almost year now working directly, because that is, the president of the board is the board's representative that meets with the general manager at least on a weekly basis. And I'll tell you, I've met with the GM and the staff almost every single day since I've been elected to the position, right? I'm looking for someone who is a good cultural fit for our community, who's really good leadership skills, and has excellent business acumen and transparency, the ability to understand and communicate how our business operates, and then make sure that that is known to not just the board, but to our community, so everybody has a good understanding of how our business operates. And I think those things are critical for a new general manager to come in here. We've got a tremendous bench in our tier 2 and tier 3 leaders. We don't have a house that needs to be rebuilt. We need a good, solid leader at the top who's going to be able to come in here, work with the staff, work with the board, work with the committees, be out in our community, and understand why this is a wonderful place that we chose to live in, and wants to help maintain and enhance that going forward.
I just wanna say one thing. I've heard cultural fit a couple of times and I'm kinda offended by this because we should be a very culturally diverse community. We are a community that is drawing in people and they're coming here to buy homes and raise kids and it should just be, everybody should be sensitive to everybody else's culture. It shouldn't say, oh, you're not culturally fit, so we're not gonna do it. That's discrimination. I don't like that.
Unfortunately, I think you don't understand the definition of cultural fit, but.
Unfortunately, I think you're using it wrong.
Then we just take the temperature down and remind everyone that we have coffee. Yeah. Okay. Next question. Let's find someone who I can ask one yet. This lady over here.
I walked around at the referendum, I walked around, oh, Barry DeMar, section 732. I walked around with two of the board members who helped to encourage people to vote for the referendum. And it was hot and sweaty and mosquito-y, and we talked to hundreds of people. And the referendum didn't go through, but the one thing that we were focusing on was if you don't vote for the referendum, we may very well have your dues go up. And the part of, and the decision, the vote that was on the board was to actually have the new owners that are buying in pay 1 year's worth of dues, and that would have collected enough money that our dues would not go up this year like they did. And people didn't vote. We didn't get enough votes to have the referendum passed at all. You could have voted no, 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 or yes, 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 but we didn't get enough votes. We have to encourage people to vote. And I talked to a bunch of my neighbors and like, we're not political, we don't vote. We need to change the mindset in our community. And how are we going to do this with new work?
Any board members? Garzi?
Mary, I'd love to answer that. And thank you for the question. It's a very good one. The last two referendums have not passed. And part of it is the way the referendum is set up, that it has to be so much. So it's a formula. And a suggestion might be to change that to simple majority. And again, that takes the referendum. So a thought is to go where people are. My suggestion would be when we have Halloween on the 20th, there are a million people lined up. Have people there with clipboards, have a simple statement. You can have the formal statement of what a referendum is, but break it down into a small, simple statement and then talk to the people in the line. They're not doing anything other than watching their kids. This is before they had candy, so they're not as a lot. But there are many, many things, swim meets, soccer games, concert on the point. There are a lot of ways to reach people where they are instead of expecting them to come. So I would strongly suggest trying to do that.
Tracy?
I would suggest, I do believe we need a change in how we go about trying to get people to participate. I believe we need one issue at a time. Yeah, I think sometimes people are completely overwhelmed with what's in front of them. One question is quite enough. So I think if we attack it one issue at a time, I also think we need a little bit better education. Maybe we start earlier. Here's the problem we're facing. Here's our solution. And here's how we want to solve it. And this is how we plan to solve it. Maybe a little bit more detailed education about what it is. I think timing, I would suggest the timing we put forth referendums or ask people to vote is when we're all paying attention to all of our documents when we go pay our assessment at open buildings. The one time a year, we all do it. We're going through all of our paperwork, you know, getting our decals ready, making sure what we own. We're paying attention to every detail about our assessment. We're going to pay our assessments on the line and issue it then, within a month period, and let people vote then. Can take your time, tonight, I'm heading into that.
Many of the people that we spoke to, and this is at the latter end of the voting time after they extended it. But one of the questions we got was, what's a referendum? Why are people not paying attention, reading the late current, watching the boards and you know, there's some kind of disconnect. And if you, and I know we're doing the best we can to get it out there, but they really honestly didn't know. So, like, what's a data center?
Let me just add something to this conversation, although I am not running for the board. Of all of the 3 or 4 questions we had on the last referendum, every referendum we've had, there were 3 questions, about a 65% in favor ratio of those who voted. There are people in the community that wanted every referendum to fail regardless of the benefit. Don't vote, and it's a no vote. What a cowardly way to go about things. But let me just say this, the referendums, we got to get people to pay attention, but the main thing, just encourage anyone you know to vote. Just yes or no, just vote. The rule is, if we take a referendum to change, it's a 50% plus 1 vote, 2,131 votes passing.
Just one quick thought to add to that. So I've heard that said many times, and respectfully, just to respond with an alternative thought there.
And I've been on the board.
I get you. So 65% of the people voted for it. The assumption then going forward is that the people who didn't vote don't care. And I don't know that that's true, because I think that there are plenty of people in our community who are smart enough to realize that a non-vote is a no-vote. And so I don't profess to know what the percentage of non-votes were no, but I guarantee you that some of those non-votes were no's.
So as somebody who was out in the summer heat with my wife, walking around, going door to door, trying to help people understand why their vote was important, it was brought home to me that 7 people cannot carry a referendum in this community. I was a proponent last year for us making cash awards every week. And the grand prize, it was going to amount to your basically being able to pay your assessment or get reimbursed for your assessment. And we still couldn't generate enough people to come out and vote in order to be able to get the 3 questions passed. This past referendum, each of the 3 questions of the voters who did vote, they were at 67 point something in the affirmative on all 3. If I'm on the board and we attempt another referendum, I agree. And there were a number of board members last time that thought just 1 question. We ended up going with 3 because we thought that, you know, the community would be able to consume them. I would suggest that we would only go with 1. And then we're going to have to do something that is kind of akin to the way neighborhood watch works in most communities. We're going to need block captains. We're going to need wardens. We're going to need an entire special committee set up to run the referendum. 7 members of the board can't carry the mail. It's not enough people. It's going to have to be a grassroots. Everybody, every street's going to have somebody who's responsible for getting the message out. We, you know, while I was on the board, we hired a communications and member engagement manager. If you haven't seen the impact that young lady's made with her team, you haven't been looking around. The changes in late currents, the information radiators, the dish, email blasts, all these things. And we use all of that to try and push out information. We went and stood at the front, you know, in the lobby of the clubhouse and tried to get people to vote right there on the spot. One of the things that everybody has to remember, and our potential candidates here, there are specific rules in our governing documents that structure exactly how we have to conduct our elections. So it's not something that each board gets to decide when and how and where and all that. There are rules that we have to follow. And again, going back to what Pete reinforced, if you want to change them, it's going to take a referendum.
And the vote.
And it's going to take a successful referendum.
Next question, here.
Just to follow up on the referendum,
A lot of people work during the week and so they can't get to these board meetings. And plus the board meetings are sometimes 6 hours long and what I'm waiting for is that number 5 hour. I'm thinking a lot of people get their information on the referendum from the Currents. And that referendum had a one paragraph explanation of what it was. To be honest with you, I didn't know it was gonna help me reduce my homeowners payment. If we charge 2,000, maybe if that was a little bit clearer, I think we need to be a little bit more clear on the pros and cons of those referendums in the Current where everybody can see it. They're just a little bit too vague.
Questions, anybody else? Questions? Someone who hasn't done one yet? Dick?
More on the referendum. My suggestion is we use neighborhood watch. You have folks that are interested in community, that have volunteered to be part of the neighborhood watch. I'm sure many of them, would be willing to assist in the referendum.
Yeah, that's exactly why I said we gotta model it on something like that, because it's gonna take community to make it happen.
Any other questions? Anybody who? On the repeat run here, let's start over here.
Yeah.
Just looking for clarification, and this is for Ray. The first part is, can you clarify what you believe is a cultural fit for the community? And the second part is, yes, we are extremely lucky to have Paul Orlando as a consultant here. You mentioned a company to choose the manager. Does that mean that these remaining board members are choosing a management company before the new board is in place?
Okay. I'll take them in the opposite order, because it's the first one's, or excuse me, the second one's pretty simple. What we're doing is we have interviewed executive search firms that focus on placement of general managers in large scale communities, HOAs, POAs, large clubs, those types of things. They're going to help us narrow down a field of candidates. Then we already have in structure a plan for, I think it's going to be 3 groups of 5 in each that are going to have board members, committee members, and members from the general membership will be part of the team that does the interview, conducts the interviews on the 2 to 3 finalists. And with working with these firms, what we should end up with is somewhere 3, probably no more than 5 people that we should want to hire any one of the 5. Our real problem should be how do we choose between their candidates? But that's why we're bringing in a firm to help us do that. So. No, they're not. They're executive search firms. We're not bringing in an associate or anybody like that to manage the company. We have an interim general manager right now, Karen Brodeur, and she's doing a fabulous job. So now, cultural fit. And what I mean by cultural fit doesn't have anything to do with what anybody's race, religion, creed, color, country of origin. I can't remember all the different ones that are out there. What I'm really talking about is someone who comes in here and understands how our community operates, who wants to see us continue to grow and flourish and be a place where everybody can come and live the kind of life they want to here at the lake. We don't necessarily need to have somebody come in, and as everyone should know, because when you signed your contract to buy a property here, you signed the fact that you read all of our foundational documents. So you've read the articles of incorporation, the declarations, the rules and regulations, the bylaws. You could try and run this place as a strict interpretationalist, and it'd probably drive you crazy because you couldn't get everything you wanted accomplished, right? So we need to have somebody who comes in here and kind of understands how to work in a community like ours, because we're very different than a lot of large scale communities. Most large scale communities, I'll just pick some of the ones that these companies are talking to us about down in the Carolinas. They have a very homogeneous kind of structure. All the houses are about the same price. Everybody comes in with the same, economic background. We don't have that here. We have homes on the lake, about 850. Some of them are over $1 million. We have homes in some of the roads towards the outside of our community. People may have bought here in the 2s and 3s. Maybe they appreciated to the 3s and 4s right now. And when folks join the board, they'll understand as many people who come up and say, I don't want my assessment to go up. There's a whole host of other people in the community that says, I want what I bought here for. I want these amenities to exist. I want all these things to be maintained, and I don't care what it costs. I have the economic capacity to pay for it. And as Paul mentioned, if you stack up what our assessment is against communities that have much less than we do, we actually posted a meeting of folks from one of the CAI chapters, Community Association Institute. And they came here for a working session, training session. And in the discussions, one of our board members had with them over lunch, when they understood what we had, and then he told them what we paid, they were all shocked. So, and here's the consistent theme. They said, you can't stay in business. You can't stay in business if that's the amount of money that you're charging. So we understand that that doesn't necessarily fit here, right? But you've got to have somebody who kind of understands that we've got people on both ends of the spectrum. And we've got a whole bunch of people in the middle that just want everything to work. They just want to come and go, live their life, right? So it hasn't got anything to do with who we want in our community. We don't have any control over who buys in our community, but we do have control over bringing someone in who has the background and experience to be able to adjust and adapt how we operate to the culture of our lake community. Well,
The culture is that. I understand what you're talking about, those topics, but if you're gonna elaborate.
Well, I mean, our culture here doesn't have really anything to do with who you are. It's our lake life, and it's our trees, it's our woods, it's the fact that, you know, we don't have streetlights, and we don't have fences. We are a community that was started in 1967 as a single-family residential resort community, right? So we have amenities here, and people made a material reliance when they bought here that these amenities would continue to exist and be operated. And as also has been mentioned, we're not designed to make a profit, right? So breaking even is where we really want to try and get to. But, you know, we have to have somebody who comes in here and understands that while we have people who live here on this, who are on the fixed income, then we've got folks who aren't. We've got younger families that have moved in with kids. And how do you make sure that you're dealing with the challenges and the issues that you have? We've got some folks who are, and the majority of our community loves being there. We've got some folks that are on social media that are always trolling about something else, you know, or the other. And, you know, we have to do what we need to do when people aren't in alignment with, you know, our operations. That's one of the reasons why we have an ECC as an example. But it's about understanding the community. It's not, I came out of the Army. I don't care if you're purple or not, if you're in the foxhole with me. I really don't care.
I think that's been covered pretty well. Darcy has a comment.
I think much it comes down to the diversity of the community and how it changes. There are a lot more retired here, COVID changed things. And I think it's looking at where we are and how best to serve most of the community. I haven't heard too many people say, oh, I'll pay whatever it needs to be. And I do try to listen. I've been to trying to go to every committee meeting, and I thought there were 22, maybe I just missed one. But I've learned a lot about the lake community and meeting different people. But it seems to be a lot of the same people on a lot of these committees. I think it would be nice to have others do that. One of the people who comes to the Pools Committee, which I've been on for many years, said he was very excited to be able to meet some young people who would have their kids on swim team. And he walked in and he goes, gosh, you're all old. And so I think we need to tap into the community more and respect the community a bit. One of my strong examples, I think, is I put together a trivia team. And there are a lot of people that play trivia. And one day somebody came in and said, well, you can't play anymore because we're closing fairways at 6 o'clock. No one was notified. It was that day was all the notice that was given. And there were 65 people in that room. Yes, they said we weren't, that fairways wasn't be profitable with us there. But that isn't the point of why we were there. The point is, it was part of community and communities together.
Okay. Well, next question. Someone who hasn't asked one, we're out of that. Jay, back to you, then to Vanessa.
Question to all of you. Referendums in regular words have been hard push every time, right? So they just, my concern is that moving forwards, it's going to be the same issue, same problems. So the question to you all is, should we not be looking at hiring a professional marketing company? And the follow-up question is, if that's yes, maybe we should be interviewing them, just the way we interview our other contractors, subcontractors. Interviewing them, see what they can do for us, because that removes the board from being involved directly, because there's a lot of pushback against that. I face that myself. And would you be willing to set the funding to the side, should that marketing company be selected?
Who wants to take that first?
It's a great question, Dawson. The answer is I don't have the answer. But what I do believe in the way I want to answer your questions, that's the kind of outside the box thinking that I would really like to pursue as a board member. What are our options that we've never tried before? Because the one thing we can rest assured is that doing the same thing the same way that was unsuccessful every time is probably going to be unsuccessful again.
Ali, you have something?
Exactly. If we want to make changes, we have to make drastic changes, and we're not saying, of course, we can't just say, yes, we'll look into that. It would have to be a board decision. But marketing is really pretty simple, and I think that marketing would be specific for each entity, each amenity, and it's specific, and then you reach out to certain groups to pull them in, and you use social media to your advantage, and you use the lit up boards in the community that we now have to their advantage. To answer your question, I think it is a good option to look at. I don't know that our numbers are gonna meet that. And if we're talking about trying to cut back expenditures, we may have to look at some other areas first. It doesn't mean that it won't come down the road.
If you had something, sure.
And Lawson was out there in the heat, locking, beating on doors, as well last summer, and, she was also part of the board, this year where we appropriated, I believe it's $15,000 in the budget right now to help conduct a referendum. The current board had made the decision with everything else going on with the GM transition, we are not going to attempt, and the elections, we're not going to attempt to do one during the remainder of this board year. However, there are funds in there for the next board and its members to contemplate doing a referendum. We also talked about that potentially one of the better times to do it would be during the budget cycle. So here's what happens. If it passes, here's what happens if it doesn't. And maybe people will be more motivated to be able to get out, turn out and vote if we were to change the timing. But there is funds, and we did allocate money this year for the conduct of a referendum. And that could be whether we bring in an outside firm to assist, or we use that to do some more type of marketing. But I can only speak from my experience. I don't believe that in the past, cash prizes, or at least of the size that we were offering, had been used before. So, I mean, we have attempted, to try and pull as many different levers as we can to try and encourage people to get out and vote.
Thank you. Other questions? Jay had one?
Jay Fox again. Every year you go through the budget cycle and all of the managers, department heads, the board, the general manager get together and come up with a budget that they should have all bought into. So I see a lot of responsibility of everybody being involved, being solicited. What's it going to take to run this organization for the next year? What I'm having a difficult time seeing is accountability. If people know what their budget is, they know a year in advance, sometime in advance of what that budget is, and they have input to it, why aren't people being held accountable for the budgets that they were given?
You may want to take a shot at that.
Excellent question, Jay. One I also have and wish to pursue. Our budgets need to be line items. When we set those budget numbers at the beginning, it can't be, we hope to make $10 million this year. It is, what did you make last year? Boom, that's your revenue. What did you spend last year? Boom, that's your expense. What are we willing, that's what we need to decide, to subsidize for you to maintain, stay open. And then that's it. You're right. That's the accountability. We're not going to take money from here and put it over here to make up for that, because that messes up that amenities budget. This is it, and then we're gonna have to stand the line and say, no more.
What else on that one? Darcy?
Tracy's on the finance committee, and they've come up with some good ideas to address the budget issues. And I think it would be also important to be able to get more information out, communication. Yes, there's a lot of communication now. A lot of people that don't read like currents. I think our new board that's right outside this building, the video board, I don't know what it's called, and the one at Fairways and the one at the clubhouse have been great ways to communicate. Because if you're sitting there, you can't help but see it. Having some of the budget information on there, so it's more available for people to see. And somehow, if someone has a question, where would they go to answer that question? It would also, I think, be helpful to have one more of those boards that could be portable. That you could put it at Concert on the Point, or you could put it at other areas where you have a mass of people and there's waiting for something. So they have time to look at that board and read it. If you have a portable one, that would be helpful.
Question over here, Laurie?
I didn't say before, section 2. But I'm section 2. I'll reduce my name. Having sat on the finance committee for the last, this month with year. The budget, oh my God. We have a budget, the board approves a budget, and you're right, every amenity, managers and their employees had input into that budget that finally gets passed by the board. Then at the end of the year, we get a deficit. There's a cash operating deficit. I believe the 3 years I was on the finance committee, there has been a major deficit each year. So then the finance committee makes a recommendation to the board of where to get that money. There's 5 sources where that money can come from. NCR, new construction renovation, R&R, yeah, NAI. The 5th one is a special assessment to balance that out, because we have to have a 0 deficit when we start the new budget year. Okay, so my question to any one of you,
I think we've established that the board is the ultimate leader, decision maker at our community. The general manager works for the board. So I would like to hear what your thoughts on what you will aim to do at the end of each quarter, at the end of each month, when you see that the amenities are now operating over budget and we're headed towards a deficit again.
And who wants to start on that?
Take it first.
Tom?
So I think it's gonna be very important to stop the mismanagement, because we have to be, McDonald's, if they have too many employees and they're not moving very fast, they cut people and send them home. So we can start there. We're not trying to put people out of jobs, obviously, but we have to stay within our budget. And if it's not a busy time, why do we need people floating around? So each amenity is gonna have to be looked at with the general manager. That's his job, is to manage all the other managers. He's gonna have to be on these people, and I think it would at least a monthly meeting with each of those managers to see how business is going. Where's the budget now? What kind of improvements are we looking at? Is there something broken, or can it wait? Those sort of things, but it's gonna be very important for them to stay on top of them, and as us, as that board candidates, and whoever gets elected, is gonna be our job to make sure that that is happening with the general manager on a monthly basis, to go through, comb it through. And then we need to look at those numbers as well. And if that means that we all have to go in and have a lunch with the manager at each places, then that's what we've got to do. But that way we can all pull together different ideas, marketing skills to bring in more business, to touch the younger crowd, to pull them in, to make sure that people who are in the working force are getting the information. It's all got to go together.
I'll add to that. I do think a more timely look, not wait for the end of the year to see, oh, surprise, look what we, quarterly meetings is probably a better idea. I believe the previous members did KPIs, so sit down with each amenity and how are we reaching our goals? How are we not? What can we tweak? Are we increasing our revenue? Have we got costs too high? What can we do? But I agree, a more timely and often look at where the state is.
You had something?
So I'm gonna use this as an opportunity to shout out to the finance committee members. I haven't worked with them long, but I have a huge amount of respect for the tremendous depth of knowledge that all of them have, and the efforts that they put forth over the years to try to solve some of these problems with recommendations. What I will say is, if anyone wants to take the time to look at the recommendations made for every year, the finance committee creates budget guideline recommendations for the coming fiscal year. So we just finished the work on 26-27 fiscal year. And it is a huge departure for the way we've done it before. It's been forwarded to the board, it's now up to them. It goes a long way to answer a lot of your questions. And I would encourage you to take a look at it and get feedback.
Steve, you have something?
Yep. So I'll be the first one to tell you that, in the past, budgeting in the community has been aspirational. And I'll use my favorite example of the equestrian center. For those of you who don't know, I grew up on a working horse farm, so I'm very intimately familiar with running stables and dealing with horses. And one of the budget lines, they were being committed to doing 100 riding lessons a month. Well, there's no way they're going to do 100 riding lessons a month, especially in the wintertime, right? But that was kind of what was built in. So for the past several years, we've been putting pressure on the GM and the staff to get the aspirational component out of the budget. Get to what you really believe you can make, right? Not trying to go in with a budget that hits the mark, but actually real world information. And Tom mentioned that the finance committee has been charged by the board to rework the budget guidelines for this next year. This past year, the board worked more intimately than it ever has before during the 3-day budget symposium that we had here with planning and finance, where we actually were more engaged, asked more questions, and were able to participate a lot more than had happened in the past. This past year, we put KPIs in from the previous board year, brought them into this year, and this fiscal year that we're in right now is going to be the first year that KPIs were actually in place for every single department so that they can monitor their operations in accordance with their key performance indicators. Now, the real challenge is going to be, we think they're the right ones. I should say in planning, they were developed with a member of the board, with the finance team, and with the budget owner. These are what they think are the most important indicators and how they're part of the budget runs. This year, we're actually going to be tuning them. We're in the process of tuning them because we may find out that some of them aren't. Maybe some are. If we're looking at the same number and that number changes never changes month after month after month, well, you know, maybe that's not a good indicator on how that operation is performing. When it comes to accountability, yes, the board is ultimately responsible, but the board is supposed to be doing more policy and not direct operational engagement. That has worked to a greater and lesser extent over the number of years that I've been on the board. The challenge of accountability is a tough one, trying to hold folks accountable for a budget. And if there's something that happens there, you know, I mean, everybody kind of talks about, you know, well, what do we do? Okay, well, if Fairways isn't making their budget, then do we just shut them down? Because, you know, how do you stop providing a service that people count on? The real challenge is trying to manage and get predictive information in your finance, not looking in the rearview mirror on how we didn't make numbers last month. But how are you monitoring? And we, you know, the department heads meet with the GM and finance director pretty much on a weekly basis. We see financial numbers on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis. We're tracking whether we're going to have a budget surplus or a budget deficit. And for folks who don't know, we've had budget surpluses in the past of $600,000 to $800,000. That money was then used to address any budget shortfalls. This is coming out of the NCR, address budget shortfalls that different departments had. And the rest was used to pay down the assessment so that members didn't have to pay as much. If when we had budget surpluses in the past, we'd taken half that money and put it in the bank, knowing that the day is going to come when we're going to be built out and there isn't going to be any more free money coming in from the NCR, we wouldn't be sitting where we are right now. This has been a decades-long problem in the making. But the board that's in place right now, and has been for the past several years since I got on board, and Terry was one of the folks who recruited me to come on the board when she was the president. We have been actively working to try and tighten up our business operations, putting in KPIs, bringing in people, adding staff where we need to, where it's critical. You know, you get two annual budget audit assessments, and they tell you that you need more staff in finance. Well, we've added a position this year to have somebody in finance, so we don't have issues with bank reconciliations or segregation of duties. We're investing, and we have invested in the business to try and tighten up how we operate our business. And it's not gonna, you know, it's not something you can solve overnight. It is a work in progress.
Thank you. Mary, you got one question back there and 3 questions, right? And then after that, I'm gonna suggest that we take these last 3 questions. Then I'm gonna suggest that our candidates are here to meet you in person. So we haven't had that many candidate-specific questions, so get a chance to speak with everyone, introduce yourself, meet them, and ask them the questions. So we'll do that after this. Before we get to that question, I want to thank Shelley Williams, one of our nominating committee members, for tallying up how many of you folks came today. And we'll thank you all in a minute. And Terry Vickery for helping get this questions after. Paul, you have a question?
Paul Orlando again. Lee, thank you for your comments about my background. It's actually 45 years. To give you an idea, a great idea of what it's like to be a community association manager. When I got into the business, I was 6'5" and I had a full head of hair.
So that's what the life is about, and I'm kind of facetious about that, but that's why I asked the question about the attributes for a new GM. It's not an easy business, okay, so trying to make people happy all the time, everybody happy, never happens. And I rarely use the word never, but never happens. I want to get away from the money thing. I could talk for hours about the money and why, when we went off the rails, Lee said decades. I'd venture to say it's probably in year 1 or 2 of the community we went off the rails on the budget and the assessment, but I won't get into that. I'm curious about the candidates' feeling. There was a referendum question floated, I'd say 3 or 4 years ago. And then last year on giving the board the authority to levy penalties, monetary penalties, in accordance with state law, for homes that were not in compliance with community standards, as the community standards are set either by covenants or by rule. And I'm curious about where the candidates stand on that ability, to give that ability to the board, should that question ever come up again in the community, because unfortunately, the ability to do that was taken away from us many years ago, in the Supreme Court ruling. So in any case, where's everybody stand on that $50 charge?
We'll go right down the line. That charge is set by the Virginia Property Owners Association Act, $50 one-time fine or a $10 per day charge up to 90 days. So that we did that for many, many years here. That ruling from Virginia Property Owners Association came out some 20 years after like it was formed. We did it for years. The Shadowwood case that Paul just referred to, took that away unless it's in your covenants. Therefore, you have to do a referendum to put it back in. That's the quick background. Where do you stand? In favor? Not in favor?
On the referendum, I think it was misunderstood, and that's why a lot of people didn't vote on it. I think it was written in a way that people didn't quite understand it from the comments that I got. I did encourage people to vote. I think that's a very good point.
Yes, in favor, not in favor? What's the question?
Oh,
Okay, Tracy.
This one I'm gonna need a lot more thought and input on. I fear that could be too punitive. It's a very hard line for me to say, but I also understand there are people who live next to properties that are very, very poorly taken care of and nothing has moved the needle. I'm not gonna say yes or no, I'm gonna say that's something we need a lot more information about.
I would say I'm in favor of it if we have properties that are pulling down the values of surrounding homes. It's inappropriate. I do think that there should be a warning given. I think that we should go and talk to these folks because maybe they had a stroke, maybe they don't have somebody else, maybe they don't know who to reach out to. So instead of us just accusing, throwing things in the mail and saying, boom, you have a charge for it, let's go to the door and say, hey, what's going on? Is there something that we can help with? Is this something that Home Health can come and help with at the church? Is that a list that we can put them on? So I'm about helping the community. We're supposed to be members and all taking care of each other. But I also think that there does become a time. There are some people that probably just dig their heels down and say, this is my property. I'm not cleaning it up. I don't care what you guys think. And they do need to be held accountable just as any of us need to be held accountable.
Oh. The devil's in the details on this one. And that's really the critical thing. And so I join Tracy. I don't have a yes or no answer. How this thing is worded is going to mean everything because it could be perverted into something that could really do damage to the community. It could be perverted in downstream boards into something that's dependent on to generate revenue and all kinds of bad things that I've seen in the past with neighbors and their HOAs. So I would be extremely cautious with it, but in general, I'm for enforcing property standards.
Lee.
Right. So I'm a strong yes. I'm just gonna hold this up real quick. There are 3 pages, 11 by 17. That's just the current list of all the violations that covenants enforcement is working on right now. And that's probably a third to a half of what actually exists in our community. So since I was on the board, we actually did implement the fact that we now make a phone call and we do email in an attempt to get a compliance. Every one of us in this room signed a contract with the association and with each other to take care of our property in accordance with the declarations, bylaws, rules and regulations, and articles of incorporation. All of that is what we're supposed to know and how we're supposed to comport ourselves in our community. And we do have some folks that have challenges. The board recently just dealt with a case where we did everything. We reached out to the church. We reached out to Lowlink. We had someone from Lowlink who is I'm not going to use the word expert because that has a connotation, but is very knowledgeable in how to deal with individuals who may have issues in dealing with organizations or authority or people that they don't know or whatever, and attempted to provide free services. We got people who would do the work for free that were capable of doing the work, there were no issues with that, and we still couldn't get this individual to take advantage of it, to try and clear their violation. So we have no other choice but to take that person to court and have a judge direct them to do what's needed to be done. This year, one of my budget amendments was to add additional funding. Last year, we had, I think, $95,000 in legal fees budgeted for. I bumped it up to 130, and it's probably going to go up above that. Because right now, until we get this tool back, and it wasn't just taken away from us, it was taken away from any community who did not have it written in their foundational documents. And the state did not say it's wrong. They just said it's got to be in your documents and you can do whatever you want pretty much, as long as it's written in them. As Pete mentioned, it's, we predate the VPOAA by 20 some years. So the issues we're dealing with right now, the people who founded this community had no concept that would ever occur to us. But we have to take care of these violations because it collectively affects all of our property values. And that's the responsibility of the board to ensure that we maintain property values. When I go out and look at these things, and normally the list that comes to the board in the board book, I'll go out and drive by and take a look. Do I see the same things with the covenants enforcement inspector? By the way, we have one covenants enforcement inspector for this entire community. I'll go out and take a look, and if it's what it is, then yeah, I'm in favor of us doing, the needful. We don't force this to go to court. The members' non-compliance forces this to go to court. Right. So we've got to do this. It's our fiduciary responsibility. And if you end up on the board, it will be your fiduciary responsibility to ensure that we take care of the problem issues in our community. When I'm also out looking at it, I just go, what if I was the neighbor and I had to wake up every day taking a look at that? And the problem is it can take 6 months or more to work something like this through the court system. And it costs us money every time we do it. We've got to send out letters. We've got to pay attorneys. We've got staff time that's used up. And all of that contributes to why we have to have so much money in our legal fund.
Thank you. Next question. Dave Hollis, 13147. A lot of discussion today about money in, money out, and the management of that money by the subordinate directors within the community. How would you recommend, or at what point would it trigger a recommendation to eliminate an amendment?
Somebody wants to take, let me just preface that with, it takes a referendum. Now, how you want to go about it? Anything we want to answer that question?
Obviously, it would take the referendum and more than one person, but if something is consistently losing, then we need to look at where we could better use our money and build a new amenity. Can we reach out? Can we do something for the youth? Can we do something for the teenagers in the neighborhood instead of if that's happening? So it would really look at the last few years of consistency in the budget and if they're losing and why they're losing. If it's just too much staff, are we able to save it or are we not able to save it? And then the other option that some of us board members have talked about before, are kind of, do we need to rent these things out? Do we need to lease them to another business that's doing well to draw in the business? So there are lots of things we can take.
Anybody else here from this one?
I appreciate the question. I think the answer is member engagement. But we don't have a standard for that I'm aware of now. But when members aren't using an amenity to a standard that we have set that today I don't believe exists, then I think it's becomes appropriate to consider whether we should keep it, because not enough of our community cares about it to be a customer. Then I would consider whether maybe that's passage time. But until then, I think there are a lot of other solutions between inflated budgets and that.
Sure. As Pete mentioned, now we can't close an amenity unless we have a referendum. And there might also be some other legal entanglements of using a piece of property for something other than it was originally platted for when the community was designed and developed in 1967. The other thing to take into consideration, if you were to attempt to go down that path, is there many people in this community that made a material reliance that these amenities would exist? So there's a very real potential that it will trigger a class action lawsuit against the association in any attempt to close down an amenity. You just kind of have to keep that in the back of your mind. Might happen, might not, but it just depends on what it is. What some folks here have alluded to is the potential of outsourcing things like food and beverage, as an example. We brought 5 companies in when we auditioned for the group to do the assessment of our food and beverage operations when we selected the Borders Group. All 5 of those firms told us that outsourcing is not a silver bullet. They were able to talk to us about examples where it worked very well and others where it didn't work very well and it was brought back in, or the first company failed, they had to bring a second company in. One of the things that happens when you outsource, though, is you begin to lose control. It's not your business, it's their business. And they'll operate it how they see, when they see, for what they see, it's no cost. And we don't have any control. If you want to have a special event there and you'd like somebody on the board to help you get into the community or get into that amenity, not if it's outsourced. That company's going to set the rules about how that amenity is going to function. So you have to understand that doing that, there may be pluses, but there's going to be minuses. And control and ability to use that how our community sees fit may not be in alignment with how a for-profit business expects to generate revenue from it.
Now we got our last question over here. Yes, sir.
Okay, first, thank you everybody for joining, and on the board, and there's a number of, past board members, in the room as well as current board members. First of all, 151, John Keating, I'm ECC chair. So I want to speak specifically to that question and ask, you to respond to what's going on. If you have a neighbor next door that has a trash yard with a derelict vehicle in the yard, what do you want to do? What do you want us to do? We actually send out, probably I think to your statement, we send out a letter and a phone call to the listed name and number. If there's more than one, we send it to both, to every violation, so that they have plenty of time to respond. Then they get a letter, an official letter, about the violation with all the details that are in the covenants and regulations that they can respond to. If we do not get a response to that, there is no fee to this point to anyone. And there's a lot of expense. The ladies in the office spend a lot of time. That list, I think that list is current, is 100 violations on that list. And if you look at the community, that means there's less than 2 or 3% bad actors in the community that don't follow it, because they don't make it to that list until they've gone through the entire process and haven't responded. So the dilemma is, if you have a guy with a car falling apart in his driveway, next door to you, what do you want the association to do?
Is that a question for these folks or just, all right, so let's go down the line again. Let's, and let's try to make the answers as quick as possible because I want people to get a chance to meet with each of you. And I promise that we do that by 12. So where do we start?
I'll start because he kind of directed it back towards me.
Okay.
So, let's talk about the car that may be perceived as junk car. There are several cars that move on these roads that have good licenses. They're insured, they're everything. People don't have the money to do whatever, or they don't care to. It may look like it shouldn't be running, but in fact, it is running. I myself received a letter from you, Mr. Keaton, for my husband's work truck. It's green and silver. It's not the prettiest thing to look at, but I trust you. It will pull anything out of the thickest mud. It is one of our work trucks. It's gonna stay there. It might not be beautiful. My neighbor may not like it, but it works and it has tags on it and it's insured. So guess where it's gonna be? In my driveway.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back to still, I think this would be a case by case basis. You would look at it individually. I agree with Tracy that, it's case by case. And I know it was on the referendum to try to alleviate some of this going to county court. And that is expensive to do. So that would have helped eliminate some costs. But I think it was misunderstood.
I'm not an advocate for the way it is, John. I definitely agree that we need to figure out a path forward that works better for the community. I just need to read a document that I can be comfortable with. I haven't read that document yet. It doesn't exist for me anyway.
Also, I'm sorry, just one more. I just wanted to add to that I did not receive a phone call. I received a letter, but I did not receive a phone call. And my response to that was, it is in fact tag, title, license, and the tag is in the window because my brackets are broken on the front of my truck. But it could have been resolved with a phone call if I had in fact gotten that phone call.
So, I don't want anybody to have to suffer through having something that they get up every day and walk outside and go, geez, that's a terrible thing for me and my family and our neighbors have to look at and may impact, if I want to sell my house, may impact the price I can get for my house. We've heard from builders that their lots next to some homes, they say, yeah, I'm not going to build on that house. I wouldn't buy that lot because of the house next door. Now, our regulations are pretty specific, right? So it says, a junk vehicle, is something that's sitting up on blocks. There's a certain amount of time you can do maintenance in your driveway if you want to. That's fine. If you want to have it on blocks in your garage, the door closes, you can do that until the cows come home, right? But you also need to have a vehicle that's registered and licensed in your driveway. You can't be storing junk cars, and we know, inoperative vehicles in and around on your yard, not in your driveway. These are the kinds of things that we're dealing with. We also have a prohibition against commercial vehicles. Nobody wants, a big box truck sitting in their neighbor's driveway 24 hours a day, or, every time they come back from work. We have specific rules that say what you can do to cover that vehicle if you have to have a commercial vehicle in your yard, right? So all you have to do is follow the rules. Then you get no complaints, you get no calls, you get no email, you don't end up going to court if you just follow the rules that are in place today. And they were put in place a long time ago.
All right, listen, I want to thank everyone who watched these today, this television conversation. We finally got some coffee to go with the conversation. Thank our school candidates for stepping up. Well, we have one more, there are 6 candidates. You're right, 5 are here, 1 could not be here, daughter's graduation. But thank you all for stepping forward and putting your hat in the ring. I want to thank our Shelley Williams again, nominating committee, very different for happening here. Our Fairway staff and our staff here at the community center for weekends at, oh no, we have half of what we committed to, coffee and conversation. Now, I'd like to ask our candidates to come on out and meet with you. Feel free to walk up and talk to them. Thank you all for coming.